Okay, ready. All right. So look, we heard a lot about why RFK is running. We heard the reasons why, but later in that speech, Margot, he went on to say that a guy named Callie Means, and you're going to be hearing about this guy, gave him a call. It was actually the same day that Trump was unfortunately shot. A couple hours later, actually. But Callie Means is really probably an enemy to every food lobbyist, every drug lobbyist here in America. He is the foremost expert on how the USDA, the FDA collude with lobbyists from big farm, big ag, big food. And the net effect is chronic disease for the rest of us, for Americans. So anyway, RFK got a phone call from Callie Means, and Callie was like, look, I'm also working for Trump because, as it so happens, Trump is also in his administration going to prioritize tackling the chronic disease epidemic we have. RFK at that point, he said, began thinking, hey, we have more crossover issues than I thought. So look, I mean, this is important because we've never heard of an American presidential candidate speak about preventing chronic disease. Now, they all talk about drug control, like with Kamala, and cancer and and lowering drug prices. They never talk about eradicating the need for drugs altogether. So this is very big. This could be a huge crossover issues for a lot of voters, like we talked about. But to understand all of that, really, because there's a lot to unpack, we're going to bring on an expert, a very special guest. His name is Ken Berry, and he's one of America's top health content creators. He's an Amazon best-selling book author. The book I love is The Lies Doctors Told Me. But he's got a new one called Kicking Ass After 50 because I'm 25. I've not read it yet. But I've followed Dr. Berry for the last couple of years. And I really mean this. Not only is he a mensch, but he's an American treasure. And I'm telling you, a civil servant, because, I mean, he's really donated a lot of his time and his content to get people who are sick out of being sick altogether, or to prevent them from getting there. He's like you and me. I mean, he thinks that this is a national security crisis with the obesity and the diabetes. So I'm going to welcome tonight Dr. Ken Berry.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you could come on. Let me ask you our first question. Are you as hated as we are by lobbyists and politicians?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of friends who are lobbyists or politicians. I don't think I'm on many Christmas card lists from those type people.
I'm not either. So welcome to the club.
Yeah, right. Big food and big pharma don't love me. Anytime they are talking about me, it's never in a positive way.
Well, welcome to the club. I think we've got a few target practices we make up. So
yes,
we can relate. But when you just said the magic phrase is big food, big ag, what are they?
So big food is the billion-dollar corporations who make ultra-processed food and sell it for a profit. Now, I'm a capitalist. I believe in liberty. I believe in freedom. I believe in the free market. But that's not what big food is, and that's definitely not what big pharma is. What has happened is they have basically co-opted the federal government through the revolving door practice of I'm CEO of Nabisco for 5 years, and then I work for the FDA, or vice versa. This is also happening in big pharma. And what it leaves is a corporation with perverse incentives, because every corporation wants to make a profit. That's their mandate. They have to do that. But they should not be able to do that with the help of the federal government. They should either sink or swim, just like every other business in a free enterprise system. But that's not what's happening. They're getting special favors. They have more lobbyists than any other industry, I think. I think big food and big pharma have more lobbyists than big oil. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And they're able to taint the legislation that's going before Congress and the Senate. They're able to basically capture the administrative organizations in the executive branch, so that they become their own police. And anytime that sort of situation is set up, the American people are going to suffer. And I believe with all my heart that every child deserves to be able to eat what I call a proper human diet, which is real, healthy, whole food, that humans have always eaten for thousands of years. They should not be forced to eat Cocoa Puffs and drink Creature Cooler and have cookies for dessert. That's not real human food right off the bat. That's going to lead to metabolic disease. That's going to increase the child's risk of obesity, fatty liver, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, long chronic diseases when they become adults. It doesn't lead anywhere good or productive. And so you can imagine now that we have a population of adults who grew up being fed this crap from Kellogg's and Kraft Heinz and Mondelez and General Mills and Post, only 12% of adult Americans don't have at least one marker of metabolic syndrome. Literally 88% of the adult U.S. population has one marker of metabolic syndrome, if not more. Now, at some point, that becomes a national security risk. And in my opinion, that's a human rights problem. This is a huge deal. And I've always kind of sat back and wondered why politicians didn't talk about this. Because, you know, if 88% of your adult population is metabolically ill, what kind of country do you have? What does that say about your country? What does that say about your leaders? And then for the leaders running for office, they don't even mention it. It's not even in the discussion. It's like, okay, I guess maybe I think it's important and they don't, because I've been talking about this for 8 years now on my YouTube channel and other social media. And only now in 2024, after everything that's happened over the past 2, 3, 4 years, now it's finally in the public discussion. Hey, let's talk about metabolic health. Let's talk about ultra processed food. Let's talk about vegetable seed oils. And I couldn't be happier, because it's almost like Pandora has opened the box, and now all of these subjects that used to be verboten, don't speak of that, now it's in the public discourse. And I think that's a very healthy place for it to be. I think that none of us should let it slip out of the public conversation until we have reached some kind of consensus as to what we're going to do about the collusion between big food and the FDA and the USDA, big pharma and the FDA. Something's got to change. The majority of Americans are metabolically sick. 50% of adult Americans at some point are going to be diagnosed with a psychiatric condition. This is not genetic. This is not just, it didn't just come out of nowhere. This is the food. And so we're fed pseudo food adjacent products that makes us metabolically sick. And then Big Pharma is happy to step in with 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 prescription medications that don't cure anything. They're just going to manage that condition for you for the next 20, 30, 40 years. That's a great model to make billions of dollars, but it's a terrible model if your goal is to have healthy, happy, mentally fit citizens. And that's my goal.
Well, I've always said, and I still believe this, the number one killer in America is sugar. People people do not equate any of the conditions that we see with sugar, but the truth of the matter is almost all of them are a result of sugar intake.
Yes.
In some type of way.
And so what many people don't realize is that sugar comes in many forms. So a lot of people know, oh yeah, I shouldn't eat things with added sugar. So I'm just going to eat potatoes, and I'm going to eat whole grain bread, and I'm going to eat, crackers, not realizing that those things are full of starch, which break down into sugar in your mouth. Even before you swallow them, you have an enzyme in your mouth that breaks the starch down into sugar. And so by the time it gets to your small intestine, you have literally eaten pure sugar. So if you eat 2 pieces of toast, a baked potato, and some saltine crackers and drink a glass of orange juice, you have just eaten a complete meal that is nothing but sugar. And that's going to lead to hyperinsulinemia, hyperglycemia, metabolic syndrome, obesity, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver. I could go on and on and on. And more we're finding out that it also leads to mental health problems as well, because surprise, surprise, your brain is not some separate body. It's part of your body. It is part of your body. It's not a separate thing. And so what makes your body metabolically sick will also make your brain metabolically sick as well.
So I heard RFK talk about there are somewhere on the order of 1,000 chemicals that are banned in Europe but they're in the foods here. And I just got back from a 2-week trip to Europe, and I didn't see a lot of overweight people. Now, I must admit, the food over there didn't taste great to me, but I realized that, I mean, I do carnivore intermittently, but sometimes I don't, right? But
Right.
the flavoring, the food does taste a little different there, and it might be because of those 1,000 chemicals. Is that something that is feasible for us to be, like you said? I mean, I'm a capitalist as well. I'm a fiscal conservative. But how do we reconcile banning certain food items and not becoming Europe or a nanny state? How would that work?
Well, I don't really think that we're in danger of becoming nanny states by banning chemicals from our food that are bad for us, that have already been banned in 20, 30, 40 different countries, proven scientifically to be harmful to the human body. I don't think that makes you a nanny state. I think that makes you a rational capitalist. You can't put poison in the food supply. That's dumb. That makes you an intelligent capitalist to not put poison in the food supply. Now, let's be very clear. Big Food doesn't put enough poison in the food supply to kill you quickly, because their attorneys and their accountants say, oh, that would be bad business practice, too many lawsuits. But if they kill you over 20, 30, 40 years, nobody's going to sue you over that. So you get away with that. Many of these chemicals that RFK Jr. is talking about are meant to make the food hyper palatable. And that's what you experienced when you were in Europe. The food tastes good, but it's not that good like America. And that's because our food has all these extra chemicals that are chemically made in a factory, and they are scientifically designed to make the food hyper palatable. Some of the commercials in the past say you can't eat just one. They're not joking, and they're not bragging. That's literally true, because it's been scientifically designed so that once you start eating them, you're addicted to them and you can't stop eating them.
Well, if you take a step remove from that, and you talk about growing your own beef or growing, meat, it also has to happen there too. I've noticed a lot of mandates are being put in place on cattle and what they have to eat, or what they're doing to make their cattle meet the ag inspection conditions. And we haven't seen a lot of cattle ranchers here. There's not a lot of them. We call them farmers, not ranchers, but they're not complying with that. They're not going to comply.
Well, the part of the reason they're not going to comply is because they can't comply. Because if they complied with every single regulation that's strangling them around their neck, they would go broke. They would go out of business. And so what I find fascinating is that each and every year, new regulations are put in the CFR that gives big food corporations more and more leeway, more and more freedom. And then also every year, more and more regulations are put in place to constrain and restrict our farmers and ranchers even more. And you see that every year. So the people who are trying to raise or grow real food are being strangled by the regulations. And the people who are making the most unhealthy, ultra-processed crap on the planet are getting fewer and fewer regulations. They get more and more leeway every year. And so I think it comes down to the ranchers and the farmers don't have the lobbyists that Big Food does. And so they can't get their way in Washington, because currently, if you're not taking congressmen and senators to $1,000 dinners and taking them on this and that and the other, you're not going to get what you want, evidently. And so that's why I'm a huge proponent of buying your food locally. Find a local rancher, find a local farmer, somebody whose name somebody who you can put your hands on if they screw you over, right? Because you don't know who to go get if your Kellogg's cereal that you eat for 20 years, if that gives you cancer or gives you type 2 diabetes or makes you severely obese, who are you gonna put your hands on? You don't even know who to call to yell at for destroying your health. But if you're buying your food from a local rancher and a local farmer, you know them, you know their family, you've got a personal relationship with them, and you can develop a bond and a trust with them that you could never have with Kellogg's and Post and General Mills, even though they spend millions of dollars a year with commercials that make you feel like they're your best friend. Trust me, they're not your friends.
It's so funny you say that. I'm going to hand this over to Sloan in a second, but my anecdotal story is my farmer who leases my pasture, who puts his cattle on it, says, don't name any of these cows. Don't get friendly with them.
Exactly.
That's gross. But anyway. But as you always say, Dr. Berry, there's many ways to be on the carnivore diet, which we'll tell us about in a second, but you don't always have to, have hands on, if you will. But I wanted to go back to something that you were saying. You said something, you touched on censorship. And I happen to believe, we've been saying that the censorship we've seen under the Biden administration, which coincides with COVID, right, has been so severe. I mean, I know people, and I'm one of them that damn near got arrested for speaking. I mean, sharing a post on Facebook about something that I had a question about to others who were experts. But I believe that it poses a serious threat to public health. What do you think?
Absolutely. Anytime a corporation is doing something or selling something that is harmful to the consumer, that's kind of one of the main jobs of government, is to step in and protect the customer from a corporation that's selling something that is dangerous or unhealthy. That's would seem to be what the FDA and the USDA should be all about. But increasingly, it doesn't seem like they're very interested in that. It seems like they're busy giving their big food buddies and big pharma buddies a pass, and then trying to basically starve out and bankrupt every local ranch and local farmer who's trying to raise real healthy food for humans. And so I don't know if you'd call that a censorship issue, but the thing that's always just mystified me is that there's no conversation at the upper levels, at the congressional level races, the senatorial level races, and definitely not at the presidential level races. Nobody's discussing that 88% of adult Americans have at least one marker of metabolic syndrome. 50% of adult Americans are overweight or obese or worse. Nobody's talking about that. I read some articles that they're having trouble finding people to volunteer because nobody meets the criteria. But that's literally all I've heard about it. There should be a huge public outcry. This should be something that congressmen and senators are talking to every news outlet about. In some of the states, the rate of obesity is 60%. Overweight and obesity is 60% of the adults in that state. Does the state senator not care? Their U.S. senator, their U.S. congressman, do they not care about that? Because I never hear anybody talk about that, and that's what confuses me.
Well, I do want to give you some hope. There is one congressman that does. That's Thomas Massey. He's talking about
he and I are Twitter buddies. We are always tweeting and retweeting each other because he gets it. He understands that real human food is usually grown locally, and he also understands that big food and big pharma are in it for the profit, and that's fine to be in it for the profit unless you're harming people. Then that's not okay. And that is absolutely something that the executive branch of the federal government should be stepping up and protecting U.S. citizens from, is big food and big pharma selling things and making a profit from products that are harming U.S. citizens' health and in some cases costing them their life.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I wanted to talk about your channel too. And when I'm talking about censoring, I mean government censorship of speech online. For instance, some may think the carnivore diet is radical in the government. Now, we know that they may be threatened, right, by the things we've been talking about. But sometimes, in fact, all the time, I can't even put anything on Facebook anymore because the things that I'm saying. And so we saw that a public health threat in that we're not able to read anything about vaccines if we wanted to, right? Or let's say even nutrition supplements, how vitamin D may help prevent some of these things. Information about vitamin D. I remember I had a couple of posts removed from Facebook because of something about vitamin D. And I believe it was a study that I shared. I mean, how are we supposed to get information like what we're exchanging now if the government can pick winners and losers and control the speech?
That's an excellent, compelling question. And I think that all of us, if we've been paying attention, we've noticed since starting around 2020, somewhere in there, that it seemed like the federal government pulled away from protecting citizens, protecting their health, and also protecting their absolute God-given right of free speech to ask questions, to question things. That's how science is supposed to work. People are supposed to ask questions. You have a hypothesis. You think this is true. Okay, let me ask you some questions about that. That's how real science works. That is the scientific method. But starting about 2020 and all the events that we all experienced, that became not okay to do that. You could not question what the perceived settled science was. And that's a huge problem. And I think many, many people were awakened by the jarring nature of people getting canceled for just asking questions, which is, first of all, your human right, God-given, that the government is supposed to be protecting. And then also, that's also the scientific method. If somebody has a scientific theory, we get to ask them questions and they have to defend their hypothesis. Or the hypothesis dies because it's indefendable. And that's not what we saw happen. And I fear that we're going to start to see that in the food wars and in the drug wars. And I'm so glad now that in the presidential race, and I'm not a political person, I don't get involved, but I'm glad to see that this is part of the discussion now at that level, because I think once that genie gets out of the bottle, the American people are going to demand that genie not be put back in the bottle. And I can guarantee you that the big food and big pharma corporations are on the phone with their lobbyists right now saying, y'all need to shut this down right now. This does not need to be talked about in public because this could get out of hand. And that's my one and only job, is to see to it that it does get out of hand, because every human on planet Earth deserves to have good health, good metabolic health, good mental health. Every child on this planet deserves to eat real human food, not ultra-processed crap that's going to make them metabolically sick or make them have mental health conditions. That's not okay, and I'll never shut up defending the right of people, and the people deserve to have good food. And real food. Some of the stuff you can buy at the supermarket, I would opine the majority of the crap you buy at the supermarket doesn't meet the definition of human food.
Well, if it doesn't come from the ground, or you can't grow it and it doesn't walk on four legs, you shouldn't eat it.
I agree. That's real food. That's exactly right.
A nut may come from a tree, but I know how you feel. I know how you feel about nuts.
Yeah, I like nuts. I eat nuts, and some people eat lots of nuts, and they're very good for them. But nuts they grow on a tree, right? But the stuff that Kellogg's and General Mills and Post and Mondelez and Kraft Heinz and Pepsi Cola and Coca-Cola sell you, that stuff comes from a chemical factory. That is not real human food.
Yeah. That's, so grape nuts, for instance, would not be nuts.
No,
that
is not nuts.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So, I mean, this has been a great conversation, and tell us a little bit about the carnivore diet, because Jordan Peterson is on it. His daughter Michaela's on it. I know Joe Rogan went on it for a while. I mean, tell us a little bit about it.
So I've been on the carnivore diet for about going on 6 years now. Not everybody needs to be on a carnivore diet, but some people, they need a therapeutic carnivore diet. So a carnivore diet is very, very low in carbohydrates. And remember, carbohydrates turn into sugar when you eat them. A carnivore diet is very, very uninflammatory. And many people will say, wait, what did you just say? And yeah, we've verified this in hundreds of thousands of people eating nothing but meat and eggs and seafood. When we check their markers of inflammation, they're always normal. So we know that meat is a very uninflammatory food. Meat is ancestrally appropriate. We have paleoanthropological evidence that human beings have been eating meat for at least 2.5 million years. So it would be like modern nutrition scientists from Harvard School of Public Health coming out and saying, oh, you shouldn't drink water. We've got a new study that shows that's bad for you, because humans have been eating meat, drinking water, breathing air, and playing in the sunshine for over 2.5 million years. So now all those things are magically bad for us? I don't think so.
Yeah, there have been critics. I mean, there's critics of every diet if it doesn't follow the U.S. food pyramid. I've noticed,
Sure.
and maybe that's not by accident.
Yeah. And what's funny about the current My Plate guidelines, which came from the food pyramid, is that they were basically designed and finalized by lobbyists for big ag and big food. That's who, and this has been documented multiple times. This is not something I'm making up. The people at the USDA came up with a kind of a preliminary food pyramid, and then they turned it over to the lobbyists for big food and big ag and said, here, how would you change this? And so initially they were recommending 3 to 5 servings of whole grains a day. And when it came back from the big ag lobbyists, it was 6 to 11 servings of whole grains a day. And so, yeah, My Plate is designed by lobbyists working for big ag to sell wheat, rice, oats, and corn. And then the vegetable seed oils, canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil. That's what the My Plate is for, is to sell those things. It's not to make Americans healthy.
One of the things that you've said, and I saw your interview, a couple of interviews where either you or your guest have said that really the biggest victims in all of this scheme are children and
Yes.
low-income people, who something on the order of 10% of food stamps go towards Pepsi or Coke. I was shocked to hear that.
Oh, absolutely. So with the SNAP benefits that poor people get, they can, if they wanted to spend their entire amount on sugar sweetened breakfast cereal and Coca-Cola, they could spend their entire SNAP benefits on that. And I am not trying to advocate to let's tell people what to do and what to eat and what not to eat, but I am advocating for people to be educated about, if you don't choose the right foods, what's going to happen to you and your body, what's going to happen to your mental health, but perhaps more importantly, what's going to happen to your young children when you start feeding them this kind of just a junk crap diet at 3 years of age? What's going to happen to them when they're 13 or 23 or 33? They're going to be obese. They're going to have type 2 diabetes. They're going to have fatty liver. They're going to have mental health problems. If parents knew that, they would go out of their way to not feed this junk to their children, but nobody's educating them, because they've got the My Plate that says eat all these servings of whole grain. And then there's the box of Lucky Charms saying made with whole grain. And so for the average parent, they're like, there you go. That is satisfies the My Plate guidelines. They're eating whole grains. And they don't know that they're causing literal harm to their children's present and future health by feeding them that crap. The parents think they're doing a good job. They just don't know better yet. But part of my job is to educate them, and thus the YouTube channel.
Well, I think one other thing people don't realize is the mandates that go on in schools for diets of school food that are not healthy.
Absolutely.
And so it perpetuates it even more and further. And we should really dive into that really quick next time we get you on, because I know we don't have much time.
Definitely.
So my last question is this. I know that you're not a political guy, but what are you going to say when President Trump asks you to be Surgeon General?
I would have to consult with my very intelligent and wonderful wife, Nisha, about that. And we'd have to have a conversation about that. But I wouldn't say no immediately. But we'd have to have a conversation about that, because, like I said, I'm not political, but I am very motivated to help every parent, every child, every mother, father, grandparent to live their best life by eating a proper human diet. And in order to do that, you have to know what that means. And so that's why I make the YouTube videos. And I don't know. I'd have to talk to my wife about that.
Oh, smart answer. Definitely smart. I hope my husband, when someone asks him a question like that, would say the same. Have to ask my wife first. But thank you so much for coming on to the YouTube channel. I get your channel just by typing in, actually, I'm a subscriber, but I don't like to brag. But you can go in and type Ken Berry, or anytime I put carnivore diet, you're the first account that comes up.
Thank you. Yeah. And if you just type in Dr. Ken Berry, you should be able to find me on all social media. If you're feeling snarky, you can follow me on Twitter or X. If you want to be educated, follow me on YouTube. And if you're feeling loving, then I'll see you on Facebook or Instagram.
I followed you today on X, so you should see. I
Excellent.
talked to you. You were talking about helping the children eat better, and I said all Americans need to eat better because it's a big village, and we got to feed them all right.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that adult humans, they have a choice. They can choose to educate themselves, where children don't have that option. They just have to feed what mom and dad puts in front of them. And that's why it's kind of also, they don't have the ability to say no. And that's why we've got to go out of our way to protect them.
I agree.
Well, we agree. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Dr. Berry. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good time at your convention.
Will do. Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay.
Wow. That was fascinating.
Right?
Doesn't help that I got an ice cube stuck down my throat.
I was wondering, I was
like, I need to find a signal.
Okay. I was going to take you out, but I didn't. Yeah, I think it went well. I mean, he's hard charging.
Yeah, but everything he talks about is stuff that parents need to know about. And it's interesting when you live in an area where there are low-income parents like I do, and when I want to say this, it's not just the SNAP amount of funds that they get. They also qualify for just what we call manna, which is a food truck that comes up here and delivers food. But it's not the type of food that you and I, Sloan, would buy our kids, right? It's a lot of processed things. There are some good things. I mean, they get peanut butter and sometimes they'll get canned salmon. I'm not so sure I'd want to eat. But we try to educate them on what they can get at the grocery store with their SNAP dollars in conjunction with the staples that they could purchase or get free.
Well, I have to tell, hold on. I got to turn the air down or up because my
Are we off?
No. We're going to record the front half. But
oh God, I need to just get the water out of my eyes. Hold on. That ice thing hit the back of my throat and just about knocked me over.
Oh my God. I should have turned the camera off. I didn't know.
I thought I was backstage. I had a straw and this little piece of ice went all the way back in my throat. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
And it like hit, like it was, oh my God, I have to get off here. I'm going to cough.
Oh my God.
I need to like find an earring or something to
I
go.
didn't want to be rude. And because
I didn't either. So I just did what I had to do.
I saw your eyes watering. I'm like,
oh my God. It was because that pellet of ice hit the back of my throat. And you know how, it was bad.
I don't mean to laugh.
It was, it's comical.
All right. All right. We're going to do the intro and then we'll skip the places for the video. I'm going to put it in. This will be really quick. All right. So the intro comes in. I guess we can play it now. Shit. All right.
I feel like I got stung by.
Welcome to NC Political Tea. Welcome to NC Political Tea. The home for conservative truth with a side of Southern charm. From the hollers of the Blue Ridge Mountains to the sandy shores of the Outer Banks, we've got our finger on the pulse of every political heartbeat in the Tar Heel State. So grab a sweet tea, kick back, and let's dive deep into the 2024 election madness.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
It's been a fun evening. We have so much to talk about, Sloan. I mean,
we really do.
The charge and the ignition in the country now after yesterday's announcement with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was just amazing.
Yeah. Talk about upshattering the DNC, which needed to happen because it was just gross as hell.
Yeah. I think the thing
fake. The whole thing's fake. I mean, Tim Walz looks fake as hell. I mean, weird, creepy clown vibes, and she's totally full of it, like a laughing hyena. Just weird.
I think you really got the perspective of fake if you got to see Tim Walz yank his son around on the stage, which was a particular video that has shown up on X since the convention. You know, people were outraged. They were like, "Don't make fun of his son," and no one did. I didn't, but people probably did. But what was interesting is when they brought the family on stage, he yanked his son, and I thought, wow, you know, you put that out there for everybody to see. I mean, that's kind of a, you know, you can smile, but we really see the real you.
Oh yeah, we see the real. Look, we've seen more than enough of them, for sure. But yeah, you mentioned that there's some electricity in the air. Let's watch last night. We know what last night was. Let's watch last night and watch when RFK walked out onto the stage. It was magnificent.
It was.
Okay, so we're gonna watch that. And bam. Okay. All right. So we watched that view. But Margot, I want to give you a different view. This is from backstage while he's walking in. So let's watch this. Because that one was kind of cool too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, Charlie Kirk did that one.
Okay. So it was badass. It was like a rock star feel. And talk about saving democracy. I mean, the whole point. I mean, we'll get to the speech in a second of why he's running. But the whole point of him running basically is to save democracy. I mean, the guy's like
children.
Yeah.
What he said is save the children. I want to save the children.
We also talked about, the Democrat Party now is something that would be unrecognizable to my father, to my uncle. Since when do you choose? You select from the top who's going to run and you disenfranchise everyone else. That's not democracy.
Well, and he also highlighted the fact that they've been legally excoriating him in every court they can. He compared that to Trump, which I thought was very interesting. He compared the fact that he's been, eviscerated in many courtrooms, which is costly. And he compared that to Trump. So I thought that was very human of him. And his policy talk really, I mean, it was honestly riveting to watch that. I didn't even realize it was over an hour long, just listening to the policy points that he was making on censorship, on, what they've done to him personally, where his head is in this and why he would align with Trump.
Let's watch this cut. Okay, so that the cut's going to mention everything you said, right? So ready, we'll come back. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, look, I mean, this, I don't care how the left spins it. It's earth shattering. You have a dyed in the wool Democrat. I mean, he's still a Democrat. He wanted to run against Biden. They screwed the guy. He couldn't do that. He feels like he's got a good platform, damn it. And he wants to, just like he's entitled to, push on with that. And then he's got a big donor, a big San Francisco leftist donor, Shanahan, in with him. But they're both saying, look, we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to be a spoiler. We're not going to get anywhere with our policy. So Trump, we have some overlap here. We can do that. But I think most of all, it's about the issue of democracy. And this is a total takeover. This is what you see in like Maduro's party.
And he mentioned that. He said we're looking a lot like Maduro in Venezuela. I think the things that he hit on that were really central to me are, the fact that they have censored Americans in their speech. And they have made it a point to allow big tech to provide or feed us garbage to watch or to read instead of truth.
Right. I mean, again, that's another thing that happens in third world countries. There's no doubt that since the Biden administration has launched, I mean, I can't post a damn thing on Facebook, period, point blank, in a discussion. YouTube, our videos are taken down. I mean, there's still now today a massive control, and it wasn't for Elon. I mean, Elon and RFK are really the ones that are championing this cut the bullshit of government censorship. Which is what
it's big. It's big if you think about it. Think about the people that have aligned: Ramaswamy, Elon, RFK. I mean, and the second RFK said he was going to support Trump, his own family turned on him.
Let's put this up. Okay, so this is something that makes these guys look like dirtbags. I mean, let's be real. Half the Kennedys drunks, criminals, murderer. Okay. So, I mean, that's not all of that. I mean, or have met untimely deaths, unfortunately. So, I mean, RFK has been consistent. He spent his professional life as an environmental lawyer. He's taken on Monsanto and others. And I don't agree with him on probably 70% of the stuff he has espoused.
Oh, I don't know. There's certainly one area that I certainly agree with him on, and his book about Anthony Fauci was riveting.
Oh, yeah.
It was so honest and truthful. He said more than one time in many interviews, he can't sue me because it's all true. And I do want to just make one funny comment. Roseanne Barr on X said one of the funniest things she said. Haven't seen the Kennedys be this upset since Chappaquiddick.
Exactly. I mean, that is just such a terrible thing to do to a sibling and say a sad ending to a sad story. Really, a sad ending is the Democrat Party, which ended, I mean, God, when Obama came in, as far as I'm concerned.
I think we're way past far left. And I think we've even noticed that in North Carolina with what we have in our the DNC chair. She's just a far leftist. She's off the spectrum left.
Let's put up, by the way, this New South that they're articulating. You pointed this out. None of these guys, very few of these guys are even from North Carolina, but this New South, that dog don't hunt in North Carolina because we don't want to become new. We want to stay where we are. Thank you very much. We don't want a socialist party taking over and putting these values in. So I think this is going to hurt them. This is top-down messaging from DC. I think it's going to hurt them.
Well, that's one thing that you can take to the bank. That's cultural appropriation right there. When you move into North Carolina and you try to take the culture of North Carolinians who are first in freedom, because you're not really from here. Jeff Jackson is not from here originally. Josh Stein is not from here originally. Even Elaine Marshall's not originally from here. She's from Connecticut.
Yeah. Right. These big liberals like to move in. But when you say the New South, and I know what they're talking about. They're probably referring to or copying some Southern strategy BS that they think they're copying. But it's top down, and it's ridiculous top down messaging because it just doesn't resonate here. It doesn't hit on much. So I'm working on a response that's going to show all of the. And I put this up in a minute. I'm going to put this post up for you guys to see. I have the receipts. They literally have far left Islamists in many of these caucus seats. And I'm going to put up a graphic just like that one to show you. Now, that is anathema to the evangelical base that the Democrats have and the common sense base that they have in the suburbs. We don't go for what you saw in the crowds outside of the DNC that was flying the ISIS and Hamas flag.
No, we don't.
But these guys support it. Now, how could I say that? Why would I say something that mean? I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because only California, highest concentration of Arab voters, Michigan, second, and North Carolina. Those three states pressure the DNC to bring people from that crowd of Jew hater flag burners to have a platform in the DNC. The North Carolina Democrat Party, they're out of step with voters.
They're out of touch with more than voters. I mean, I think they're really out of touch with suburban moms. And I say that sincerely. When you start talking about the gender things that are going on, the polling shows that even with the Title IX, even on the left, it polls 6% higher than any other issue, having boys and girls sports. So it's not just a right issue; it's a suburban mom issue.
Sense. I mean, and look, this is going around today. Ollie London, my friend, love this guy. He put this up here. I mean, this is common sense. How old is RFK in his
late 60s?
Okay. This guy is clearly doing it right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've seen, 30-year-olds dad bods, right? Okay. This guy, look at his age, ripped. And this, I don't know what the hell this is. Now, the guy on the left promotes healthy children and not putting chemicals that we know that kills people into children's bodies. And this guy, I don't remember his name, the Levine, he's promoting putting chemicals in your body, in children's body, that is unproven, like the jab, and also chemicals that would sterilize a child, depression, all of that. And that would be Lupron, which is puberty blockers.
Yeah, I think we really need to dig deeper into the messaging that RFK was talking about with children and saving children and diet. And I know we have a special guest. Who is that, Sloan?
Good. All right.
We're done. Hey, that was a good segment until I coughed my brains out.
No, that was good. That was good. Brent has been calling me over and over again.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Wonder what he wants.
I don't know. I don't know what the emergency is. I don't really care.
All right. Well, go have fun with the fam.
I am. I'm going to cut all this video down.
Try to cut me out, coughing my head out. I mean, it was like a piercing needle in my throat. I was like, oh my God.
You could probably choke like that.
Well, it's just a little tiny chunk of ice. It just hit the right way.
Yeah. That's scary as hell. You mean you're sucking on your straw? It came through
it just went right through the middle. I didn't even think it would fit in there. Anyway.
Yeah, I hate to laugh, but well, we got this done in record time.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Because you got to put the cuts in there. That's why. Normally we ride through them. Maybe it's better we do this and put the cuts in later next time anyway.
We can't do that because because it would have to be done hours in advance.
Okay, gotcha.
Like,
well, we're good.
In a while. Yeah, but this will be fine.
Okay.
All right.
Love you.
Love you, honey. Bye.
I'll see you. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Let me figure out how to get out of here again. Oh, here it is.